This segment is sponsored by Our Home Magazine. Leopard. You either love it or you love it. We're talking with Susan Morgan today with Our Home Magazine. Susan, this is the designer issue already on newsstands. And leopard is one of those things that's a feature in this current issue. What fun.
Mm-hmm. Well, leopard is a classic now, but it's been many other things in the past. It's basically something that has never gone out of style. It's gone in and out. Maybe people liked it a little less, but for most of mankind's existence, it has been a status symbol up until the last century, when they started to be able to do more faux textiles and imitation fur and things like that.
It's so fun. We were talking before we got started about where the genesis for this article in the current issue came from. And the author who penned this particular article is synonymous in Richmond with being leopard and just a fanatic with being leopard. Christina Dick.
Yes, Christina. Yeah, Christina and I were at Quirk on the rooftop of Quirk last summer, and we were talking about different things. And then she said to me, I read this book about Joe Whalen's book about being fierce and leopard. And she said, I think you should do an article on leopard. And I thought about it, and I thought about how leopard really is something that has gone in and out of style for millennium, I guess. And that there were other things too that kind of fit in the same category. So the leopard, we started off with leopard, and Christina was great finding all these references, and we talked about the history of how it has come to what it is now, and then where you can find it in Richmond. So.
Well, it's really neat. So this will be part of a series, really the design classics that will continue through upcoming issues. But in this particular one, I jokingly said, leopard, you either love it or you love it. Not everyone loves leopard. It was considered sort of in poor taste at a certain point, wasn't it?
Well, it was, I think. I know in my childhood it was, and I think I read somewhere, because I did a lot of reading about it when we were talking about doing this article. And I think it wasn't until the Graduate movie, when Anne Bancroft was wearing leopard, she wore a lot of leopard in there, particularly lingerie. And it kind of came back in, but it was still considered in poor taste. So it's really, you either loved it or hated it. I know I read in London in the 1960s, this department store, Viva, it was a fashion store, they made waves because they decorated the room where they sold their lingerie and nightwear. It was upholstered entirely in leopard, and it had a big round leopard upholstered bed, which they sold, which they displayed the merchandise on. So people were kind of shocked at that point. But it was at that point then some of the things became more accessible, because prior to that, any reproductions or fabrics that looked like leopard were pretty expensive. So they weren't available to everyone.
Well, it's interesting too, because now I feel like I have found that some of the design shift from my pedestrian view is that people are layering leopard, right? So you might have there's even different patterns within leopard, and then you're wearing it all at once. So it continues, this design classic continues to influence us going forward.
Oh yeah, I mean, actually there were two women who really made it a design classic, and they started off. One was the American decorator Elsie de Wolfe, and then the other was the French Claire Castaigne, and they both had a thing for leopard carpet, or they used leopard, but they pared down. They both worked in the turn of the century, 1900, and they kind of were tired of the really Victorian excess of stuff. And the Victorians they had big stuffed animals, trophies around, and they had a lot of animal horns and stuff. So they got rid of all the clutter and kept the leopard skin, and then mixed it with other things to make it more contemporary. And what they did still looks great today.
It sure does. Leopard is a classic, certainly here to stay, and I'm very happy about that. And I know Christina is as well. Susan, it's been great talking to you. Congratulations on the new issue.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And that May-June issue of Our Home magazine is already on newsstands, and you want to be sure to pick up your copy and learn more about this design classic.
In this instance, you can also view it, the digital version online. Rich Malcolm, the publishers, made it available. You can see Richmond Magazine and Our Home, the full issues, if you go to the website, richmondmagazine.com.
Always good to know. Thank you so much, Susan.
Thank you.
All right, as the Leopard Lady says, you can find Our Home magazine on newsstands today or subscribe at richmondmagazine.com/home. You'll find them on Facebook at Our Home Magazine and on Instagram at Our Home Mag.